Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Beyond Borders, a space for honest conversations where people, technology, art and mental health meet. We're here to explore what's changing, what matters and what it means to stay human in the middle of it all. Hello, I'm Carolyn, and as always, I'm here with Pim, founder of Digitize, and Sprenko, writer, mental health consultant, and founder of the Real Talk Hub. Today, we're talking about visibility. We live in a world where being seen is often equated with value, especially for creators, founders, and online voices. But visibility isn't always straightforward. Sometimes being seen feels less like empowerment and more like exposure. In this episode, we'll explore the quieter, more vulnerable side of visibility, the tension between wanting to step forward and fearing what that might reveal. We'll talk about inner resistance, fear of judgment, those moments when we shrink back even after being brave enough to show up, and how to meet it all with gentleness, clarity, and courage. Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't just to create, it's to let ourselves be witnessed. So for me, there's often been a deep longing to be seen, to step forward, truly, meaningfully. But being visible isn't always as simple as that. It can feel like a risk to our identity, to our sense of safety, even to how we see ourselves. So it's been a lifelong tension that I've had to manage, I guess. So speaking very personally here, I've built a public facing presence as an artist, a mentor, and now as an author. But none of that has come naturally. My relationship with visibility has been challenging for as long as I can remember. So, Sprenko, I'm going to come to you first. You speak a lot about internal landscapes. What's your take on this? Why does visibility sometimes feel so threatening, even when it's something we say we want?
That's a good and tricky one, Carolyn, and thank you for having me as well today. I think visibility can seem threatening sometimes because it becomes more overwhelming than envisaged. A lot of times people want fame. They want to be out there. They want the glitz and the glamour, and we know him, we know her, and the followers and everything. And then you get close to that milestone and you get reminded that maybe you're not ready enough. Maybe you're not prepared for all that comes with the glitz and the glamour because it's not always rosy. Like you said in the intro, there's a lot of exposure that gets when you become a public figure, and that can come with a lot of visibility. So sometimes, oftentimes, it becomes overwhelming, and you get to ask yourself questions like, is this something I really want? For someone like me that loves to be behind the scenes, behind the camera, just ensuring that things are going according to plan, I think I struggle with that thin line between visibility and exposure. I want my work to be seen. I want people to recognize my work. I want people to get impacted by my work. But I don't want to become a celebrity. So I'm kind of always careful with, maintaining that boundary between being exposed and being visible, if that gets the message across.
Yeah, makes sense, Sprenko, but it's truly complex, isn't it, as we manage our lives, especially on the social media front, I think. I'm like you, I'm much more comfortable behind the camera than in front of it. And, as I said in the intro, that's in many ways underpinned my whole life. There's always been this pull to hide, even at moments when my work's been celebrated. I've often found it easier to shine a light on other people than to stand fully in my own. But like you, I recognize that if I let that pattern rule me, it becomes life limiting. So I've had to recognize it, to name it, and to push gently against it. And that recognition, I think, has allowed me to step forward even when every instinct wanted me to step back. So, Pim, it brings me to you really. The it brings us to the external side of visibility, I think, because it's not just about how it feels inside, it's also shaped by the systems we show up in, like social media. And because a lot of it happens online now, what do you think in a world where social media often rewards performance? How do we stay anchored in our authenticity when we show up? And what I mean by that is there's pressure to be a specific way, isn't there? To show up perfectly coiffured and, you know, how do we retain our sense of our own identity with that pressure that we feel? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's a very difficult thing to do. For example, if you come in front of the camera for social media, there is a lot of things you have to think about. For example, CTAs or call to actions. Um, those never feel really natural. You immediately get, okay, there is a script involved and this text needs to be pushed. Then your authenticity is a lot less than when you, for example, talk about yourself, improvise, whatever. So for many people who have, for example, their own business, that changes probably when they get a marketing department because the marketing department says, well, it's very important that there are faces connected to the business, which is totally fine. It works very well when you look at the analytics. And that means that you need to get in front of the camera. That also means that the marketing team wants to say, have a say in what you say, which can be feel very unnatural. Then it's very difficult to stay yourself because you get a line of text which isn't you. What I find very important if that happens is that you have a say in the text that you receive. And we actually can say, well, this line, it doesn't fit me at all. I would say this. Then say that. Then you to yourself and you stay yourself. I think that's very important because even let's say in a very good matter or how you look at it, your post goes viral with your face on it and you're texting, you say a line that isn't you. Every time you see it yourself, like, okay, the result is great. I'm very happy with everything that the video, a short or whatever, brought to me, but it isn't me. So when I get invited to something, for example, a podcast just like ours, or an event, um, and they rephrase you to or quote you to that phrase that you said, it's like, well, it was a script that won't hit accordingly. People will actually say, okay, that's not what we wanted to hear. So by preventing that, you always act yourself, and if the text isn't you, then don't say it. I think that's the best way to approach and stay yourself on social media, even when there are plenty of results to be met.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and it leads us into when visibility feels like exposure, really. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that unless we show up authentically, we can't kind of maintain ourselves, and then we start to feel vulnerable in it. So as you described, if you've I don't know, used AI or just become a caricature of yourself for social media, that isn't something that can be maintained across platforms probably, or certainly won't translate from social media to real life if you have to attend an event. And then that can lead to kind of feelings of stage fright because you've put a mask up that people don't see the real you, and you're having to project something that is created, and that's the recipe for anxiety, I think. So there's a difference, isn't there, between being visible and feeling safe in that visibility. And for many, visibility can trigger trauma, shame, comparison, self doubt. And I think what you're describing could lead to all of those things because you are not showing up authentically. And I think that's super important as a message to sort of moving forward. So if you're already feeling a lack of confidence in being visible, and then you create a persona and project that persona, you're actually storing trouble for yourself down the road, I think. So let's explore that a little bit more. What do you think, Sprenko? What does it feel like when visibility turns into exposure? You know, the anxiety we feel when we've posted something personal or posted something hoping for, viral status, and actually you don't get it, or overthinking how you've come across on a podcast or on a interview or something. How does that feel?
I would say authenticity always wins. And I'm starting off with that because, while asking the question, I was just reflecting on a comment someone made about a month ago about me that I didn't really pay attention to until it was made. We worked together on an event, and she's a marketing manager for a company that we collaborated with. And, we had a work call a few weeks ago, for another project. And she was in the middle of the call. She made a comment. She said, prior to this call, she thought I was performing at the event. That was my game face, so to put it. That was work mode. I was calm, just doing what I was supposed to do, ensuring everybody's doing their respective duties and all that, and just calm and collected, organized, so to put it. But in this call that was off work, how I was speaking, things we're talking about, and she came up and she was like, that's just who you are. You weren't performing because it's work. So who you are at work is also who you are outside of work, who you are as a person. And in that conversation, she mentioned, you sound like someone who's in touch with their mental health. And I go, yeah, I have a mental health community. It's like, oh, wow. So my point in sharing this backstory is when you know who you are as a person, as an individual, not as a brand now, as a person, who you are, and channel that into everything you pour into your brand, your charisma, your presence, and eventually your visibility. It becomes natural. You don't have to pretend to be who you're not. You don't have to create a persona and then project into it and then have to be careful as to how you comport yourself when you viral and whatnot. And I'm saying that because that way it becomes easier to lean into any visibility that comes up. And when you're exposed to certain traction, sort of your post goes viral, something you work on is all over the place, you come as who you are. Obviously, when you get visibility at certain degrees where you're not used to, you've never hit 1 million followers, now you've hit that, you've never spoken to 100,000 people, now you have an opportunity to do. Obviously, stage fright may creep in, anxiety, nervousness, all that jazz. But even in those instances, you're not trying to pretend to be somebody. If you naturally wear sneakers and sweatshirts and a nice hat to go out, you would do that. And you wouldn't feel uncomfortable doing that. If you have to put on a tuxedo, you would do that because that's who you are. You come as you are, and people can tell. Your customers, your clients, your team members, they can tell when you're performing compared to when you're authentic. They may not speak on it, but we know, people can tell. So my advice, my recommendation, my go-to is know who you are. I'm an extrovert. I like to network. I like to talk. That's who you are. Stick with that. Or you're an introvert. You like to be behind the scenes. Know who you are, own your craft around your personality, your authentic self, and let people recognize that along the way. So even when you hit your peak in visibility, it becomes natural to, you're not adapting, you're literally walking into new realms rather than trying to adapt because it's not something you are, and then you're trying to perform and all that jazz. So it becomes natural and it becomes easier to navigate and build your brand around your authentic self rather than trying to build yourself into the brand you've created and the visibility you've introduced yourself to with your content and creativity.
Yeah, I love that, Sprenko. It's super important, isn't it? Because you're right, it leaks into everything that we do and is actually picked up in ways that we can't imagine. And so it is really important to maintain that. I think what's important also, as I was listening to you, I was thinking there may be people listening to this who don't really know yet that they have a problem. They may be working within their comfort zone, but not really realizing that they have a problem with visibility. And so I just wanted to touch on, what people would look at or look out for that would indicate that they may be struggling, because sometimes it can be subtle. And I wanted to share, as a mentor, I've worked with people, and sometimes it can be as simple as somebody showing up with hesitation, delaying sharing their work, or second guessing every detail before putting it out, kind of delaying tactics. Other times it can be deflection. They'll shine a light on others, as I've described myself, but resist standing in it themselves. And I also notice the language that people use. There's often a mix of excitement and apology, as though they feel guilty for taking up space. And underneath it all, there can be this constant fear of judgment. Not just will people like my work, but will they see me in my work? And what will they see? How would you deal with that, Sprenko? Have you had exposure to people who struggle or and are, not really aware of it, but you can see it? Does that make sense?
Yes, I used to be that person, and I've encountered a few similar folk myself. One of the go-to, one of the things that I do is not trying not to worry so much about what people think, as long as I am coming as my authentic self. Because the truth is, you really do not have any control over how people see you. They choose to see what they see. You can you can ask three people about who Carolyn Hammond is, and they will have completely different stories or opinions, right? So at the end of the day, we need to worry less about what people think, right? Obviously, you would have people who you care about their opinions. It could be your parent, it could be your spouse, it could be your best friend. There's certain people you care about what they think about you, how they see you. You don't want that to change. It's a positive light, right? But at the end of the day, in my experience, worry less about what people think about you. Secondly, if you find yourself struggling with visibility, struggling with putting yourself out there, struggling with getting your best work out there, second guessing yourself, you're not the only one. A lot of us struggle with that, and it takes a lot of conscious effort to get out that headspace. But you can help yourself best. And what I mean by that is you need to build that strength, that courage to understand that there's no one else like you. Doesn't mean they're not better people, but you are you. And somebody somewhere in this world is a better person because of you, your work, and your presence in this world today and every other day. So we need to look inwards more often, especially if you struggle with your visibility. You've been able to create something like Carolyn yourself, you've been able to write a book. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I would write a book more so about AI, a new field at that. You've done that, and you mentioned you're doing, a second edition or something like that, book two. That's great. Now, you've done that, you've put that out, and the reception is there, the feedback is there. A lot of times we hold back on sharing amazing work with the world because we are second guessing it. We're doubting ourselves. We feel like we're not ready to be seen. But the truth is, you may not be as good as your best work, and that should not stop your best work from getting out there. It's not about you, it's your purpose. It's not about how good you look, how rich you are, how collected you are. It's about what the work that you're doing, what meaning it has in life. And if that can touch one person, it deserves to be seen, it deserves to be out there. So we need to spend more time working and less time worrying about how that work is going to be perceived. The most important thing is we're given a gift, a skill to do something, to create something, put it out there. Let it breathe. Because if otherwise, it's gone to waste. That's how I see it now. That's what I tell people that I come that struggle with visibility. Just do it. The work is there. Let it leave out in the world. It has no use being stored where nobody can see it.
Springer, that's a super powerful message. Thank you so much for that. Pim, what about you? You've worked a lot with artists and creators. How would you set about helping navigate the edge, helping somebody navigate that edge between stepping forward but also protecting their peace?
Well, first of all, when you're detecting their peace, it's very important to know how much can they endure, because marketing or social media or whatever you want to call it can be very energy consuming, definitely when it doesn't work or when it doesn't go as planned, because it takes work to create the content, to publish the content, to reply on all the comments, etc., etc. That can really burn out a person quite fast. But what I would tell with artists is, okay, when people are not certain who you are, then they need to be certain what your style of work is. Let's start with that. Then that can be easy recognizable when they see you art, definitely over a longer period of time. They can see if you have a certain style or if you're more flexible, which is both are fine. And once that is more settled in, you can work more on your personal brand and say, okay, now I'm gonna step on the forefront, show who I am, what I do during the day, of what I don't do during the day, where I go on vacations, the small things. And also what I find very important. All those things together make you a complete package of uh, for the artist to showcase, okay, this is who I am, and etc. Yeah, do you have to be with your face on the social media? Not necessary. But with the moment you go to an event, it's very important to stay to yourself, be yourself, so you really start learning who you are and have fun with you and talk and laugh, etc. I think that's very important for artists. For the business side, it works the same way, because if you, let's say, one on the internet and you're two on the real life, then it's going to be very confusing for people what they have with you. Are they friends? Just business partners? What is it? What is the relation? And trying to get that as clear as possible. Hopefully, as friends, definitely in business, that's not always possible. Um, because in general, people with stress come together and talk about the things they stress about, which makes it difficult to sometimes open up completely and talk freely, because you don't want to bother anyone that is there. So, but stay to yourself in the sense of say what you want to say, and if you don't like something, say it. If you don't want to say something, say it. I think that's the best approach.
Fabulous insights there, Pim. Thank you so much for that. One that stuck in my mind, it was about peace. You mentioned peace at the beginning there, and preserving peace is super important. I think it's a big part of anybody's creative process, whatever kind of creative you are. And I think a strong message here would be to say, you don't lose credibility by being selective. You actually strengthen your voice when you choose, when you choose how to use it. Does that make sense?
Yes, um, people will actually like it. Um, because if you just, let's say you follow every boat that goes through the sea, and nobody knows where you are. And when you're very selective, people know who you are, what you do, what you like, and what you don't like, and then it creates a very clear message. And when it also protects you in a big way because you're not spreading out your emotions, spreading out your voice to every topic there is. So you're protecting yourself, where with that you're protecting your creativity and you're also protecting your reliability towards others. So I think that being selective is a great choice.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. I think for me, being seen isn't about ego. It certainly isn't about that for me. It's about recognizing that it's about truth. And there's kind of healing in being witnessed, I think, especially when you've spent years hiding parts of yourself. So, Sprinkle, has there ever been a moment in your life where being seen by someone changed everything for you?
Oh yes, it definitely. I remember interacting with my best friend and her seeing me in a certain light changed the game for me. It made me see myself as worth being seen. I'm gonna rephrase that. Being seen in a certain light made me see myself in a positive light. Exactly. I used to look down on myself a lot. I used to feel like I was better off behind the scenes. And being seen by this particular person who I considered very creative, seeing my work and seeing me and not necessarily praising me or complimenting me, just making me realize that there's so much in store and I have no business hiding it from the world. Really gave me that extra push that I needed. And now I'm in a podcast. I'm streaming on Twitch, you know, doing things that I never thought I would do, putting my face out there. I used to hide my pictures from the internet. I don't feel, I need to be out there. But if I'm not there, how does my work go out? I know there are faceless accounts and all that, but especially with things like mental health and creativity, you connect more when people can connect with the individual behind the art, the individual behind the words, the individual behind you know, the motivation or the advice or the experiences. People can connect who they can see with their stories they can hear. So it really helped me see myself in a better outlook, and I'm super grateful for her, for bringing that light in me. And I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to make someone else out there feel seen, heard, and desired. It's sort of like pouring potential into their cup when they feel it's completely empty. It's a beautiful thing, and I hope that we can all do that for someone in this world.
I love that, Sprinko. And it's a perfect place to be slowly coming to the edge of this episode. Pim, anything for you as we close? What does being witness mean to you? Has this been somebody in your life that saw you that changed everything for you?
Well, in this industry, everything started after presenting my art in an exhibition in Eindhoven, where I had the opportunity to tell how it is made, who I am. And then opportunities came for people who were there, so I'm very grateful for them. And I wanted actually, Spanko said, is when that somebody else made him more positive about himself. I think that's one of the best things to happen. And I think a small compliment, for example, can be a starter of that. So I just want to tell people when you think you can give a compliment and you want to give it. Because the person probably remembers it for years and might actually turn out to be very positive in the long run. That's my end message.
Love that. Thank you both so much. For me, visibility doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is stand as we are in quiet honesty and let ourselves be seen. It's as simple as that. Not because we've arrived, but because we've decided we're worth showing up for. And I'm going to say that again. We are worth showing up for. So, together, our hope is that this conversation reminds listeners that you're not alone in navigating what it means to be seen. If you've been waiting for permission, let this episode of Beyond Borders be it. Thank you so much for joining us on Beyond Borders. We'd love for you to follow along on social media and keep the conversation going. And of course, join us again next time as we keep exploring what it means to live and create beyond borders.